Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, DwyerVIP.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Let's talk about last night's first round knockout of Mike Dallas by Matthysse. Now first, a word to the gamblers, right? I circled this on my calendar weeks ago. I thought there was a possibility of an upset here by the underdog, Mike Dallas, who was a greater than 10-1 underdog in some books. But, as you'll see in both of my previous videos on this fight, I recommended a hedge. Hedges are important, especially when you have huge odds on one side of the bet that allow you to hedge, right? So I offered in the initial video a hedge of Matthysse by KO. I got blowback from YouTube Nation. People said, hey, those odds are 1-5 on Matthysse by KO, right? That's not a good enough hedge. So in a subsequent video, I said, hey, consider taking the under 7.5 rounds, right? You got slightly better odds on that hedge. Understand, whichever hedge you picked, you were hedged on the play. You should be watching this video right now with all of the money in your bank account. This is why we hedge, because you're trying to protect against the downside risk. Matthysse got the KO. He got the KO well within the 7.5 round under, right? So you should be taken care of if you're a gambler, right? To the boxing fans, let me just say this, and I know it's unpopular, the day after a first round knockout. But let me just say, solid fighters can get caught. This is boxing. Let's remember that even the great Juan Manuel Marquez almost did not make it out of the first round against Manny Pacquiao in their first fight, right? It's only because Marquez was able to get up off the canvas and his shoulders were on the canvas, right? It was only because he was able to get up off the canvas after a third knockdown in that round that we got the great series that we got. Now, Mike Dallas yesterday couldn't even be heroic, because understand, when he hit the canvas, he was completely unconscious. He didn't even have the opportunity to consider getting off the canvas because he didn't have the ability, right? He was unconscious. It happens. But as I make this video, understand that Mike Dallas, even though he was a first round knockout victim yesterday, remains a very good fighter. I'm not going to hesitate to pick Mike Dallas in future fights because he was a decorated amateur. He has excellent hand speed. He has a solid jab. Quite frankly, he has a better record than advertised. He beat Mauricio Herrera, even though officially that match was awarded to Herrera, right? Dallas is a solid fighter. I understand that the casinos didn't have to pay out on the greater than 10-1 odds. Fair enough. They were right on this fight. I don't dispute that. Let me just say, though, Mike Dallas should never be considered a 10-1 underdog. If you see him as a 10-1 underdog against anybody, that's a hedge you want to make. Okay, if you have questions about his chin, you can hedge it with the other fighter by KO. But the point is, Mike Dallas went into this fight as a very solid fighter. He leaves this fight as a very solid fighter. Boxing is different than football and baseball and team sports. In this sport, if you just make one mistake and you get hit the right way, no matter how good you are, you can get stopped. Now let's talk about the logistics on this fight. You know that phrase, stick and move, right? You'll hear old-timers say it all the time. Stick and move. Mike Dallas forgot the and move part. He should never have been that close to Lucas Matthysse. The whole point of a jab is to create distance between you and the other guy, so you're not open for some home run hitters' counters. Right? Mike Dallas, unfortunately, as Paulie Malignaggi, who did a A+ job and the commentary noted, was tight. It was early in the fight. He was just getting settled. I believe that led him to miss some cues in the fight. Right? Lucas Matthysse, who is not exactly Usain Bolt when it comes to foot speed, shouldn't have been close enough to him so that if Matthysse slipped a jab, he would have an opportunity to throw a hard right hand. Right? I'm sure as Dallas looks at the tape of the fight today, I'm sure he's shaking his head at the spacing between the two fighters. He should have paid more attention to the spacing. Let me make another point. When you throw a jab, you're at risk. Right? If you throw a jab, understand you're exposed. Right? When that punch is out there, you're exposed. If somebody comes up on this side of you, what are you going to block their counter with? Right? Your hand's exposed. This other hand's over here. That can't do much. Right? Your shoulder, you better know where your head is with regard to your shoulder, because if you duck too low, if you throw your jab too high and you duck too low, you're naked. Someone can literally come in under your jab and hit you on the chin or on the temple. Right? Both of those are tender spots that are prone to knockouts. Right? Think about the body. We know the places that get you knocked out. Liver, that's a recipe for disaster. If you get hit on the back of the head, that's a recipe for disaster. If you get hit on the chin or if you get hit on the temple, you're in trouble. If you're throwing a jab and a guy slips a jab and he's over on this side, and if your head is too low where he's able to then come under your arm, think about it. The minute he comes under your arm, you open up. You're wide open. Chin, temple. Lucas Matthysse didn't get a lucky punch yesterday. He actually told you in the post-fight interview that he planned it. He waited. Just like Marquez waited for Manny Pacquiao to come in recklessly trying to set up a left hand, Lucas Matthysse waited until Mike Dallas threw a jab that he could duck under. And that's what he did. And of course, Matthysse, as with most great punchers, doesn't need a windup to throw a hard punch. So it's a very short punch. But Matthysse had it planned. Understand the chess match Matthysse is playing. He enters the ring knowing exactly where he wants to be. He wants to be close enough to Mike Dallas so when Mike Dallas throws a jab or a double jab, he can literally jump under the jab, right? He used his height to his advantage, right? Or lack of height. He knew he wanted to jump under the jab, and he was already prepared to throw that right hand, right? So let me just say, you'll notice with great fighters, I'll use Floyd Mayweather as an example. You'll notice that Floyd Mayweather, when you get too close to him, Floyd makes sure he's covered, right? He'll have a shoulder up here, right? The idea is if you try to come in with, a short right hand, that right hand has to get through his shoulder. But the shoulder's not enough. Floyd will further cover up his chin and his temple with this hand, right? He'll be like this. If you literally come up tight on Floyd, Floyd isn't throwing jabs if you're right up on him. He's covering up. If you're unlucky, he'll hit you with the left hook, right? But he's covered up. As you throw, he's also rolling, right? You throw a right hand, Floyd's rolling to take the sting out of the punch, right? Because spacing is key. If you get too close to a guy, that guy can't throw jabs because the jabs could get countered. Here, Mike Dallas was tight at the beginning of the fight. Mike Dallas allowed Lucas Matthysse to get too close as Dallas throws a jab. And you see the risks inherent in double jabs too. I mean, guys who throw double jabs and triple jabs, whether it's Dallas, whether it's Daniel Geale, who's fighting Mundine, they have to think about the spacing because they know they're exposing themselves, right? Let me also point out too that Dallas really shouldn't even have been throwing a jab unless he was leaning forward, right, at the waist, making sure there was distance so that as Matthysse comes in, if you're leaning forward, you can then, because you're already bent at the waist, you have more opportunity to roll with the punch and to move away from the punch. Well, all I could say is here, Dallas made one momentary lapse. He allows Matthysse to be too close to him. He's not moving, right? He throws a jab. He lets the jab linger. He allows Matthysse to literally come in under the jab. The punch is so short and it's so sudden that during the live telecast, they didn't even know what happened. It looked like someone shot Dallas, right? It looked like the guys just leaned in together, and as Matthysse leaned back, you saw that Dallas was unconscious. It's only on the replay that you realize that Matthysse is throwing a very hard, very short right hand. Let me also point out too that one of the secrets of this fight is the fact that Matthysse is two-handed. Where Matthysse one-handed, if all Matthysse had was a right hand, then Mike Dallas could have defensed it, right? But because Matthysse has two hands, Mike Dallas didn't know what was coming back, right? And I'm sure he didn't expect Matthysse to literally duck under his jab, right? To come in underneath and to hit him on the temple. Give Matthysse credit too. No wasted punches. He knew he wanted to get Dallas on the temple. Look where the punch lands. It lands right here, folks. Right? It literally lands right on his temple. Dallas is unconscious before he hits the canvas. Robert Byrd doesn't even have to count him out. Robert Byrd waves off the fight before finishing the count. That's how bad it is. So what does this tell me? I know I'm going to sound like a skeptic here, and I know I'm going to get comments of, hey, he's being unfair and stuff like that. Okay, let the chips fall where they may. But it tells me that while Lucas Matthysse is a clever fighter, many of the concerns I had before this fight remain unanswered. In other words, if you look at Lucas Matthyse's CompuBox numbers going back several fights, you're going to notice that Lucas Matthysse is not that accurate a puncher. He's heavy-handed. He's very heavy-handed, right? He's one of the sport's hardest punchers pound for pound. But look at his connect percentage on his CompuBox numbers, right? Going into this fight, understand that while Matthysse throws more punches per round than, let's say, an opponent like Mike Dallas in general, understand that in terms of connects, typically Dallas would land more punches than Lucas Matthysse, right? The same reasons why I thought Mike Dallas, a greater than 10-1 long shot, had a chance to beat Matthysse, still exists, right? I'm not saying Matthysse has a problem with a mid-range hooker. Don't read in here any prediction on Matthysse against Danny Garcia should Garcia get by Zab Judah, right? My point is simply, against guys who can throw straight punches, and he's lost to 2 of them, right? Officially, right? I'm not sure if he has realistically, but officially, those fights were close enough where his opponents were awarded the wins. Devin Alexander and Zab Judah can throw straight punches, right? When you're fighting a guy with heavy hands who doesn't have a high connect rate, right? And if you have a good jab and upper body movement and can move, not stand still and get hit by a counter right hand, but can actually move and force Matthysse to reach for you, I believe you have a chance against Matthysse. Let me also point out that because of wins like this, you know, fighters are like stocks. Some guys are underrated. Some guys, Austin Trout, underrated. Other guys are overrated, right? You know, they've done things, first round knockouts in fights in which they were 10-1 favorites, right? Dramatic knockouts televised on national TV or on Showtime or on HBO, right? High profile fights where the fighter gets a win and the fans react by thinking the guy's the best thing since sliced bread, right? Because of this, and it was a great win, because of this win by Lucas Matthysse, right? Before Mike Dallas even gets started, before we had a chance to see Dallas use his upper body, Dallas move and create distance, Dallas actually land a few jabs, before we had a chance to see that, this fight was over. Because of this fight, in my opinion, whoever Lucas Matthysse fights next, he's likely to be a tad overrated. He's likely to be an opportunity for gamblers to hedge the play. So, sure, I know not many people this morning are saying Mike Dallas is a solid fighter. I think he is. And I know this morning everyone's saying, oh, Lucas Matthysse is the best at 140. I know that's what Al Bernstein was saying last night and stuff like that. All I can say is, you know what? Everyone in the sport can get beaten, right? Because Lucas Matthysse landed a bomb in the first round of a fight that never developed into a boxing match, right? This was just a big hitter landing one punch. I'm not sure if we learned that much about Lucas Matthisse's invincibility in this demolition. I'm a bit more impressed when fights go a few rounds and a fighter is able to methodically beat down an opponent than when that fighter gets a well-deserved win off a one-punch knockout. Anyway, I congratulate Lucas Matthysse. Gamblers, you should have been taken care of if you followed my advice and took the hedge. Let me just say, too, that I do believe for all gamblers, you need to look on the calendar for fights in which you have huge underdogs who, quite frankly, have a plausible chance of winning. I still believe Mike Dallas would have a plausible chance of beating Lucas Matthysse. It did not happen for him last night. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com, and of course on Roku at Dwyer Boxing. Thanks for watching.